So Jesse N. Schell is a game designer, author, CEO of Schell Games, and distinguished professor of practice of entertainment technology at Carnegie Mellon University. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jesse Schell.
Sounds like the microphones are working. So I was going to talk tonight some about what I've learned about VR and AR, because I find it a fascinating field that I think is going to grow and expand. I'll tell you a little bit about some of my background with it. One of the things I realized at some point in my life, as I was trying to figure out, like, what are the things I'm really interested in? I made a big list of all the things that I've pursued and been fascinated with over the course of my life, and I said, what do they all have in common? And I realized what they all have in common is that they all are magical. I realized that the things I like most in life are things that have a magical quality about them. And virtual reality certainly qualifies in this regard. The idea of being able to make a world that you feel like is there but isn't really there is definitely one of the most magical things that I've ever been able to work on. I did a lot of education about this, working at the Disney Virtual Reality Studio back in the 1990s, where we worked on a thing called Disney Quest. Anyone ever go to Disney Quest down in Florida? People? Yeah, it ran for about 20 years, which was an amazing stint. We didn't really expect it was going to run that long, but it did. It really hung in there. I learned an awful lot about the virtual reality experiences there. And also, when I was working at Disney Quest, I met this gentleman, Randy Couch, who was a professor at Carnegie Mellon University who was helping out with Disney Quest. And he spent some time at Disney, and we started spending time together. You know, sort of famously for the last lecture, which became very well known. And he started a program at Carnegie Mellon, the Entertainment Technology Center. And when I was at Disney, I started hiring students out of the Entertainment Technology Center and found that, like, wow, these students are really different than students that I met before. And after a few years of that, I was thinking about moving east, and I called Randy. I said, hey, you're always asking me about coming and doing guest lectures. What if I came and stayed? And that was back in 2002 when I came and I stayed, and I've been there quite some time now. And a lot of what I've been doing is teaching about virtual reality. When Randy became ill, I took over some of his classes, and one of them was Building Virtual Worlds, which is a class all about designing incredible virtual reality experiences. And I've been teaching that for about 16 years. And it always ends with this big celebration of all the different worlds and a big public display of those. And it's a lot of excitement and fun. If anyone is available to come out to Pittsburgh, December 5th this year, you'll be able to see the new festival and show you off some of that stuff. One of the traditions in the class that we celebrate is a thing we call the first Penguin Award, because there can be a temptation when you build things to play it safe. You don't want to build anything too crazy, and we don't like that. We want people to build crazy things. So one of the things we do is we give an award for the best failure of the year. For someone who tried to do something, it was just so bold that they just crashed and burned and died because it was just a little too much. And so the first Penguin Award was an idea Randy had. It's a thing we've celebrated ever since. And people who are following VR and AR right now, they're seeing a lot of first penguins out in the world. I also run a studio called Schell Games. It's the thing I basically started as a side hustle when I was out in Pittsburgh, and it kind of grew out of control. It started with just 4 or 5 people, and somehow over the period of 15 years, it now has 120 people. And we make all kinds of games, everything from mobile to social to, we do a lot of educational games, and lately we're doing a lot of VR and AR games. And so I got a lot of experience there, kind of hands-on with VR and AR. So I had experience kind of making VR stuff for maybe about 25 years now, starting in grad school, going all the way through Disney, doing stuff at Carnegie Mellon, and in my own studio. These are a bunch of the games that some of the VR games that we made at Schell Games. So at this point, when you add all our VR and stuff, we've maybe done 14 or 15 titles that we've put out there. So, question. A lot of people say, really, is VR really here? I don't see it. I mean, you've done 14 titles, but I've never heard of any of them. Like, what's the deal with that? And I often think of what William Gibson said, the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. And I think that is kind of how things are with VR right now. It's showing up, but it just hasn't quite gotten to everybody just yet. To be clear, when I'm talking about VR worlds, just to be really clear, I'm talking about generally worlds where you wear some kind of headset and then we're keeping track of the position and orientation of your head and hopefully also the position and orientation of your hands. Usually, so you'll hear people make a differentiation between 3-degree of freedom tracking, which just usually means we're just looking at the angles, which is on the right here, or versus being able to track the position of your head, which is much trickier business. And those we call 6-degree of freedom systems or 6-dot systems. The other thing is the question of like, what kind of hardware is your VR system going to run on? Presently, most VR systems are parasite systems. They run off of something that wasn't designed to do VR. PCs were not designed to do VR. Game consoles were not designed to do VR. Phones were not designed to do VR. But VR systems parasited off of them, and we made systems that sort of work. But that's not going to be the future, because that's not how technology works. Technology always specializes. Technology always diverges and never converges. And so, what's very interesting, an announcement that Facebook just made, they've announced a new system, the Oculus Quest, which people may have heard of the Oculus Rift, which is their PC-based parasite system. They have a new system that is not a parasite at all. It does not connect to a PC or a game console or a phone. It has its own processor. Everything is completely self-contained within the headset. And then it has these 2 hand controllers. And where are the wires? There are no wires because everything is wireless. So for $399, you just put on this headset, you take these things, and you are good to go. And it has complete 6-degree of freedom tracking. It seems very likely that the future of virtual reality looks more or less like this. And if it's not this system, it's going to be systems like this that are going to be the ones that are going to be successful in the marketplace because they're going to be easy to use, affordable, and powerful. One thing to just, people sometimes get confused about this, the difference between virtual reality and augmented reality, it's a little sketchy exactly how to break it down. But long story short, VR systems are ones that block out the world and just show you a world of pixels. AR systems are ones that show you the world and kind of paint some pixels over it. So you get to see the world, but also some selected areas with pixels. Now, sometimes you hear people talk about mixed reality systems, and those often work by having something like having a couple of cameras on your VR system and giving you video, and then painting some pixels over that video. And that's also a system that can work and be successful. I think it's probably going to be, in the long run, more successful. But I just want to make the distinction between VR and AR systems because they are a bit different from each other. So one of the things I want to talk about with AR systems, because I hear a lot of people say, I don't know, VR seems weird, I'm not really into that. But AR, I'm so excited, oh my God, I'm so glad it's here. And the technology's finally ready. And like, these things are cool, but I want to talk about some of the challenges they have and why they're a little slow. This is a project that some of my students did that was an AR experience all about a sick child in the hospital. So you can take a look at this and see what you think.
Now, we need to take some blood. You'll feel a little pinched, but I promise it will be done in 10 seconds.
Mommy, I'm scared. I hate needles. Come over and hold my hand, please.
So right? I mean, here we have a room, and we're tracking the room, and we're putting these virtual characters in the room and making this kind of heartfelt scene. There's one problem. This looks great on a video screen, but if you were doing this for real, what happens is, because she's like, oh, come hold my hand, and it's amazing, because you go over and you give her your hand, and she reaches her hand out, and she feels better. It's amazing, but look at these lines right here. See how it's cut off? You can't tell, because you think of it as a frame, but if you were in there with the VR glasses, right, with the augmented reality glasses, you would see there is nothing down here. So you walk up to the bed, and the bed is really there, but she's all cut off on the top and the bottom. Unfortunately, that's how these systems work right now. And this is using the HoloLens system. And this is just a weakness of these systems. This limited field of view really limits your immersion and your ability to feel like you're in the world. And it's a tremendous challenge these systems have. And it's not clear it's going to be solved anytime soon, unfortunately. So, thinking about these systems, this is part of the reason I am much more focused on VR than AR right now, because it's not clear that the AR systems are ready to provide experiences that people are going to want to do. VR is much more ready to make things that people want to do in the short term. Now, a lot of people say, really, VR, come on, it didn't work in the 90s. Why is it going to work now? And this is a reasonable question. We had VR systems in the 90s. We put them in Disney Quest. The main technical difference between them is they're cheap. When I look at the set of features on the Oculus Rift and I compare it to the Onyx systems that we had in 1995, the features are kind of the same. The only difference is it costs literally 1,000 times less. Our system back then cost $500,000. And now they cost about $500. So 1,000 times cheaper, even though the features and the polygons are about the same level. So price is certainly one point, but there's other things to remember. You know, when you think about traveling through time, people forget that technology takes some time to start to work. Like, for example, TV. Most people think of TV and they're like, I don't know, it was invented in like, what, 1948, and then it was really popular by 1952, boom, that was it. Well, that's not how it happened with TV. What happened with TV was invented in 1884. All right, the first demonstrated television system, 1884, the Nipkow disc system. But it wasn't really good enough to distribute. It was kind of nuts, right? It was just kind of this lab prototype. It barely worked. And they worked on it through the 1890s, and then the 1900s, and then the 1910s, right? They're working and working and working. You can imagine people are like, oh, come on, that thing's never going to work. And then 43 years later, what happens? This 20-year-old punk, Philo Farnsworth, in 1927, is like, you know what? If you put a magnet next to a cathode array, you could actually solve a lot of the problems that we have. And boom, suddenly there's a breakthrough. But it took 43 years. And even then, from 1927 to the time we actually were able to take this technology and turn it into mass production, it was another 20 years right there. Technology doesn't just always happen just like that. So you compare that to VR, for example. People are like, oh, well, VR, like what? It was invented in the 90s, right? Something like that. No, it was invented in 1968, first working VR system. Ivan Sutherland, with the Sword of Damocles system, it was like the first functional VR system. And then, what do you think happened? 43 years later, a little 20-year-old punk shows up, and he says, you know, you can solve a lot of these problems if you use an OLED system with a fast refresh rate. And it was like, oh, wait a minute, this gets a lot cheaper, and things start to work. That's freaky, actually. That freaks me out a little bit, those coincidences. But the point is that technology sometimes takes time to mature and then cross a threshold. And I think that's what's happening with VR right now. And another thing we're noting about it is, you look at technology, look at color TV. Like, color TV comes out, it's not like it was boom, it just like succeeded. There's this flat part at the beginning. VCRs kind of had a flat part. Cell phones had a flat part. Internet adoption had a flat part. I think VR is kind of going through its flat part right now, and it's going to start to rise up. so another question. People say, well, wait a minute. If the whole point of VR is that it's 3D, we saw 3D TV, and that was a total flop, so why won't this be a flop, too? And I argue this is a misunderstanding about 3D. People think the value of 3D is, man, cool stuff's coming right at me, that's what 3D is about. But they don't realize 3D has real challenging problems. And then further, we don't like 3D that much. Because 3D is not new technology. 3D is invented in 1849. Like, stereoscopes have been around for over 100 years. People have made 3D phones. Like, who's got 3DS? Anyone ever use a 3DS? Nintendo 3DS? Who plays in 3D? Keep your hands up if you play in 3D. No, look at people like, no, 3D sucks. Boom, turn that off. Right? What a waste. Like, that poor piece of hardware was so designed so you could do 3D. It's like, no, turn that off. Who cares? We don't like 3D for 3D's sake that much. So that's kind of the problem. 3D is nice once in a while. People remember Toy Story Mania, right? At Disney World, wear 3D glasses, that's cool. You go to a 3D movie once in a while, that's cool. But 3D all the time, we just don't care that much. It doesn't work well for everything. There's a reason most of the 3D movies that succeed are all about like heroes flying through space. Like that's because that's what 3D is best at. But VR isn't just about 3D for the sake of 3D. VR, by combining the motion tracking and the hand tracking and the 3D, that combination creates this sense of presence. It creates this sense of being in a place that you don't get just by watching a 3D movie. Nobody watches a 3D movie and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm there. Well, like maybe a little sort of you do, but not like when you do VR. One of the things that we see happen in VR a lot is people's bodies forget that the VR is fake. I'll show you an example here. There's a game we worked on called Water Bears. And it's just a little video of somebody playing Water Bears.
So let's see what do we have in the menu. We got some bodies we can use. Oh, look at Miguel. Let's give him some sweet, sweet lemonade. There you go. And now he's going to turn red. Yes, he is. Oh, man. And he's going to hit the confetti bubble. Puzzle solved. Use portal to continue. Yes.
So the thing, this is just a game where you get connecting pipes together to help out these little water bears. But it's a puzzle game. You have a limited number of pipes, and sometimes you have to really think. Because you're like, wait a minute, I did this, and that doesn't work, and this doesn't work. And you'll very often see people that look at it and look at it, and then they'll like see the table over here, and they'll just be like, well, and they realize, oh, that's all imaginary. Wait a minute, this isn't real. Like, because your body starts to believe that the whole thing is real. This sense of presence, this sense of like being in a place is a thing that no other medium has been able to deliver. TV cannot do it, film cannot do it. That's part of the magic of VR. So VR is much more than just an illusion of 3D. Another simple question, people say, oh, what about motion sickness? No, what about motion sickness? You can't stop that. Motion sickness is a problem. Well, motion sickness can be a problem, but it doesn't have to be. So to comprehend motion sickness, it's not just that like, hey, you put on VR and some people get motion sick. It's much more complicated than that. You need to understand what motion sickness is. Okay? So if you look inside your ear, deep inside your ear, there's the inner ear. And the inner ear has this awesome, amazing thing here, which is designed to help you balance as you move through the world. Because balancing is really a hard task. If you ever watch people trying to make robots that balance, it's super hard. And the way we do it is we have this 3-ring system over here, which is like 3 concentric rings, one for the X dimension, Y dimension, and Z dimension. And fluid moves through these. And if we zoom in on this little square over here, there's this little lump, okay, right here. And when the fluid moves through here, pushing from one side to the other, these little hairs get moved, and this is how your body knows that which way is up. And so your body figures out, okay, which way is up. And so it can figure it out rotationally and also through acceleration in the X, Y, and Z direction, which is pretty amazing if this works at all. Well, when does this go wrong? Well, there are times in nature when you ingest certain toxins, okay? There are mushrooms and other things things that you might take that are going to poison you and you're going to die. But before you die, they cause a symptom where the signals from your inner ear get disconnected from the signals from your eyes, because your body doesn't just use your inner ear, it also uses visual information to figure out balance. It's looking for horizon lines. Now, if you've ever been to a funhouse where they change the horizon lines on neon tape or whatever, and you have trouble walking around, it's because your body uses visual information combined with balance information, puts them together, and that's how it figures out balance. When you eat certain kinds of poisons, it disconnects these things. And your body has learned, if these things are disconnected, if what I see in my eyes and what my balance system are feeling do not connect, I am poisoned and I am going to die, so I had better vomit right now to save my life. Alright? So when you feel motion sickness, whether it be from in a boat, or a car, or a roller coaster, or a badly calibrated VR system, it's because your body's trying to save your life. Right? So what does that mean? Well, what that means is you have to be careful about the kinds of motion you put in your game, because your game is not going to be able to give you real physical motion. You need to understand the realities of motion, and if the acceleration signals don't match what your inner ear is doing, you're going to get sick. But if you have 90 frames per second and a fast refresh release system like the modern systems do, and you limit the virtual motion that's in your world, you can create zero motion sickness for you. It means you have to design your games a little differently. They have to be games less about running around a giant world, and they have to be more about manipulating objects that are around you. But if you do that, you can create absolutely zero motion sickness if you care to. Okay, question 4. Who's actually going to use this stuff? So there's a lot of different places that this stuff can get used. Certainly industry has a lot of places that VR and AR systems can be used. Here's a video from a studio in Canada that does a lot of stuff using AR for design things.
Across North America, training agencies are digging into HoloLens developer tools and documentation, creating new models for how we design and build.
And it seems like a simple thing, the business of designing a truck cap, but the reality of the way truck caps are designed now is someone comes up with a new idea for one, they carve it out of clay. This giant slab of clay, because they need to do wind tunnel tests and stuff. And they need to look at it and sort of see how the whole thing works. By doing it in AR, they save a huge amount of time and trouble, and they can do virtual wind tunnel tests, right there. You can just see it all happen. And it's fascinating. The best uses of AR are the ones that line up real physical things, like they have a physical truck cap here, with virtual. Because when you have it on, you have a hard time telling where one ends and the other begins. You're lifting the glasses and checking it out. So for people who are designing and building real physical things, VR and AR are incredibly powerful tools. What else? So there's all kinds of things. So people who are need to learn complicated industrial things, you're going to fix a jet engine or something, that's really valuable. Medical training, they've been already using AR and VR for 20 years in that industry, and now that this technology is more affordable, it's going to be used more and more and more. You do architecture, you can visualize what spaces and places look like, of course, that's really valuable. You do military training or pre-visualization before a mission. All of those things, incredibly valuable uses for these technologies. That's all certainly true. But of course, entertainment often leads the way on these things. And there's a lot of uses for VR in entertainment. Some of it is kind of crazy, right? I know there's VR roller coasters. It's sort of weird. It's sort of another thing, but there are dozens and dozens of these VR roller coasters out in the world right now that you can try out. But a lot of these things are using the VR systems that we have in the home right now. So far, we've seen a distinction between these sort of mobile VR ones that you stick your phone into and PC or console ones. So far, what we've seen is the PC and the console ones are the ones that monetize better because mobile things no one wants to pay any money for, but PC and console people are used to paying some money for. So that's where kind of the traction is starting to happen. I think this is going to change more when we see systems like the Oculus Quest come out. And the reason it's going to change things is because of the best audience for VR. And I would argue the best audience for VR is teenagers. So right now, if you take a snapshot of where we are right now, people under 25 seem very interested in VR. When we talk to them, they're like, wow, this seems cool, I'd like to try this, I'm going to do this. These systems are expensive, $700 plus a $1,500 PC. Like, I can't afford this. This is crazy. I can't afford this thing. People over 25 are like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in that. It's kind of cool, and a lot of them can afford it, but they're just not that interested. Once we get to this place where we have systems that are $200, $300 and they work really well, like when you look, imagine 15, 16, 17-year-olds, oh my God, like this is such a good fit for their lives. They are interested in kind of exploring things on their own. They have time to themselves. They get really into kind of deep experiences. I think we're going to see a situation where ages maybe 15 to 25 will really be leading the way in terms of like what's popular in the VR space. So that's the thing that's coming very soon. Here's a quick trailer from a game that we developed. This has been our most successful entertainment game at Schell Games. I'll show you the trailer here.
Welcome, Agent. This being your first day, we have a lot to cover. You may think you already know what it takes to play a spy, but I won't get too comfortable. Make it quick, clever, and most importantly, inconspicuous. In order to outsmart our nemesis, Dr. Schell. Our previous agents were, well, less than successful. I'm sure you'll be faced with increasingly deadly situations. But with your superior wits and your perfect danger, I'm sure you'll be all right, Agent in no time. But to be perfectly honest, and without any condolences, I expect you to die.
You'll see there isn't a lot of motion. It's not a lot of running around. This is about kind of caught in some kind of crazy death trap in this place, and like how am I going to solve the objects that are around me? So we very much tried to design it for what VR is good at. It's worked well. It came out in 2016. It's consistently been in the top 10, and it actually has earned more for us in 2018 than it did in 2017. And that's just kind of a sign that the market is continuing to grow and expand. So entertainment is great, and entertainment is going to lead the way in a lot of this stuff because it monetizes pretty well. But one thing that can't be underestimated is the power of using this as a medium for art. Here's a little video of Glenn Keane, a famous Disney animator, talking about what it's like to create art inside VR.
I would draw not to do a drawing, but so that I could step in and live in that world. Today, all the rules have changed. By putting tools in your hand that can create in virtual reality, I can put goggles on and I just step into the paper and now I'm drawing in it. North, south, east, west, all directions are open now. Just immersing myself in space is more like a dance. What is this amazing new world I just stepped into? When I draw in virtual reality, I draw all the characters real life size. They are that size in my imagination. The character can turn. Ariel is actually turning in space. And even if you take the goggles off, I'm still remembering she's right there. It's real. That doorway to the imagination is open a little wider. The edges of the paper are no longer there. This is not a flat drawing. This is a sculptural drawing. Making art in three-dimensional space is an entirely new way of thinking for any artist. What does this mean for storytelling?
Yeah, it does mean for storytelling. It's a really interesting question, and it is a very different way to create My daughter loves to draw, and I remember having her try Tilt Brush one day just to see what she thought. And she couldn't even believe what she was looking at. She was just completely enraptured with it and kind of spent about an hour just drawing all kinds of things. And that night she goes to bed, and about an hour later when she comes downstairs, she's like, I'm sorry, I can't sleep. I keep seeing everything I drew in my mind. I've never seen anything like this. She's like, Daddy, when you first saw Atari, was it like this? And I said, yes, it was. That's right, that's exactly. So there's a lot of implications, I think, for the world of art, but also for the world of education. This is such a powerful potential medium to help for education. There are so many possibilities. Really interesting survey a couple years ago for people who are thinking about doing VR. What do you plan to do with it? And it's fascinating. Like, number one thing, travel, tourism, and adventure. Like, gaming's on there, but look how far down it is. And look what's above gaming. Education is on there. Like, people are serious about it. People see the potential value of education. So a lot of people are like, sure, you can make these VR videos on being in place, and that's kind of cool. Gives you a sense of sort of being in place. That's kind of one thing you can do. But if you're going to use this to teach, like, what subject is it going to be good at? Certainly anything involving geography, certainly anything involving social studies, to be able to go to places around the world and see what they're like. It's one thing to see pictures or watch a video, but actually be in a place and understand what that place is like. It's a very powerful experience and a great use of VR, particularly as a filmed medium. Mathematics is a natural. What's so hard about mathematics very often is its abstractness. By making it concrete so that I can actually reach out and touch and experience the mathematical shapes in a concrete way and engage my tactile sense, my proprioceptive sense is incredibly powerful. Certainly anything involving kind of science and chemistry, that's sort of a slam dunk because there are so many things that are tough about doing these science, doing lab experiments, and you can be able to take it into the virtual realm. One thing very inspirational to me, I'd seen this story about this 10-year-old girl who was playing around with kind of an advanced modeling set with her science teacher, and she's like, hey, I built this thing, what is it? He's like, I don't know, let me look it up. He's like, it's not in any books. He starts calling professors on the phone, what is this? And they're like, no one ever built this before. Is it possible to build it? They figured out that it is. And she and her science teacher published a scientific paper about the discovery of this molecule. And I thought, man, if we could make something like this accessible to every kid, that would be really powerful. And at our company, we built this thing called Happy Atoms, which uses an augmented reality technology to do that.
Build, scan, and discover the world of molecules with Happy Atoms, the revolutionary chemistry learning tool. The physical and digital chemistry modeling set lets you learn about atoms and molecules in an intuitive, hands-on way. The complete set contains 50 atom bombs representing 16 elements. The atoms connect easily with magnets to form molecules. Then, use the Happy Atoms app on your tablet or smartphone to scan your molecules. The state-of-the-art image recognition technology identifies the molecules that you build and provides detailed information about them. The free app invites you to explore the world of molecules in a fun and engaging way.
So this just uses phone-based AR right now, but we can certainly go beyond that. But even phone-based AR is powerful. And one of the ways I really think augmented reality technologies are most valuable is not with an empty tabletop and put virtual things on an empty tabletop. But putting virtual things on an empty tabletop, I might as well just have them on my screen. But when you have physical objects you can touch and hold, and those are augmented by what you see, that's when you have real power. So the touchability of physical objects and augmenting those, that's when we're going to see the real power. Here's another lab-based one that we did. This one uses pure VR.
The traditional chemistry lab finally has a modern companion. Developed with input from chemistry teachers, HoloLab Champions is an immersive, safe, and entertaining environment that makes master chemistry lab skills fun. As game show contestants, players can perform a variety of lab challenges, leading to a show-stopping final lab. Or, in practice mode, they can hone their skills on specific tasks. Players are scored on accuracy and safety as they perform work that prepares them for success in a real lab. Hall Lab Champions is the chemistry lab companion you've been waiting for.
So now why do this instead of having to go to a real lab? Well, like, you don't have to deal with toxic chemicals, you don't have to deal with fragile glassware, you don't have to set up, you don't have to tear down. It's a great way to get kids to start learning the basics of lab skills virtually. And of course, could you just do this on a web page? You could if you wanted to read about it. But the great thing about VR is it gives you muscle memory. You learn what it's like in order to tip and balance. And you gradually pour something in and to use a spoon and a scoop. You build up muscle memory about real things. And that's often where VR education is strongest. Things that involve real physicality. Other subjects, certainly the idea of history, being able to go back in time and experience historical events is an incredibly powerful idea. We had a group at Carnegie Mellon create an experience that was fascinating, all about the question of police brutality. And it's powerful because it puts you right in the scene. I'll show you a short video right here.
Stay still, stay still. Why are you doing this? You cannot do this.
What are you even doing?
Stop doing it.
He uses voice to interact.
How do you know this guy? Is he with you?
Yeah, he was just standing here.
It's enough.
So it's fascinating. The presence feels real, and this becomes a really great way to discuss these difficult issues. Now, the system, of course, can't detect when you put your hands up, but like, again, people's bodies forget. It seems so real when you do it. One of the things that I can't help but note is just anecdotally, we found white players tend not to put their hands up, black players do. And that was sort of like, oh, that's, the world is a creepy place sometimes. But VR as a vehicle to take you to places and put you in situations that you couldn't do any other way. It's a very powerful medium and idea. Another one we use for history was something we're experimenting with. This is super early. This is going to show you a super rough video. We're experimenting with a thing where you get to be a historical figure so that you can produce videos as that figure. So we've done an early experiment where you get to be Ben Franklin. And here you can see, here I am, I'm Ben Franklin. I'm up on stage, I got some kind of virtual stuff going on here. I think there's my magic mirror. Hey, there's me, I'm Ben Franklin right there. And then the idea is you're going to be able to give a talk as Ben Franklin. We'll have a little teleprompter. You can put your speech in ahead of time. You can talk about the books you've written and some of your inventions and those sorts of things. And you can control your facial expression, and the mouth will go automatically. And so it's just something interesting, because normally we think of VR as a way to take some places, but it can also be used as a way, as a creative tool, not just for drawing and painting, but for performance. You can actually, create animations very efficiently just by performing as your natural self and mapping those onto characters. It's not going to happen overnight in schools. Here's 5 reasons it's not going to happen overnight. First, the technology is very new. It's not really completely ready for prime time. Schools don't know what systems to buy, and they're wise to wait. The technology is fragile, it breaks a lot. Schools are tough on things. I had one teacher tell me, yeah, if you bring in 2 ball bearings, put them on the table in the classroom and turn your back for 1 minute and come back, 1 ball bearing will be missing, and the other one will be broken. So schools are kind of tough on things. The VR systems aren't quite ready for that. Hygiene is a big, weird problem, because keyboards are bad enough, people touch them with their hands. Imagine a keyboard everyone had to rub with their face, right? Because you never knew who was using it before, right? You never know what that situation is, right? So hygiene is a problem. And schools in general, they're just slow to adopt new things. So we're not going to see VR like revolutionizing schools overnight, but I think selectively we're going to see it start to pop in useful places. Communication is a really interesting tool for VR. Here's a little trailer of a thing Facebook worked up for their Facebook Spaces.
Hey Jack, are you all excited for our trip?
Yeah, and look what I found.
This is so cool. Is this the same spot we're going to?
I hope so. And look, I think that's where we're taking the boat tour.
Oh, I love it. Look, I'm gonna go chat with Melissa, but you're setting up the partner, right?
Yeah, I got it.
Great. See you later, Jack.
All right, see you later.
Bye. Hey girl. Guess what? I got my apartment. Wow, nice. Look at your balcony. I know, it's amazing. No roommates. I love that. The lucky blue couch. Yeah, this table with this floor. Perfect. Jack keeps calling me. Can I talk later? Sure. Bye.
I can't tell if it's the coolest thing ever or the saddest thing I've ever seen. I'm not really sure, but I do feel certain that the power of social VR is going to have huge potential. And one of the things I think is really true is VR home movies are going to be the most important form of VR documented film. Because it's great to see a photograph of a baby's first steps. It's even better to see a video of a baby's first steps, but to put on that headset and actually be there in the room when it happens again, that's going to be something that people are just, it's going to be so valuable to people. Using VR cameras for home movies is going to be something that before too long, people are just going to, they're just, how did we not have this before? To start to wrap things up here, one of the things worth thinking about in terms of what's going to make VR really powerful is going to be the nature of game characters, because the sense of presence of having another figure with you is really powerful. This interesting experimental project that was done a few years ago. I'm just going to show you a little bit of it.
We've been experimenting with something here. I'd like you to meet a boy called Milo. He's a character that can recognize us, he can recognize our faces, he can recognize our voices, he can recognize emotions in us. And this is Claire. She's going to introduce you to Milo.
Hi Milo, how you doing?
Hi Claire, you okay?
Actually, I'm a bit nervous.
You? Nerves? I don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't know if I believe it either, Milo. So this was a demo that was made by Lionhead Studios for the Kinect maybe like 7-8 years ago. And it was constructed largely out of vapor and lies. So it never really worked or did any of the things it said it would. But it was a really great vision of the future, of the notion of being able to have a natural human conversation with another character who's right there with you. And we're getting so close on that. The voice stuff is getting there, the character animation stuff is getting there. VR is going to make it even more powerful. So that's the characters that kind of are with you and act as kind of like imaginary friends are going to start to be very powerful. Chris Swain, who's a professor at USC, he makes an interesting analogy. He talks about the history of film, and that, but in the early days of film, people didn't take film seriously. They looked at it like kind of a joke. Film was something for people who weren't very smart, and for little kids, it was kind of a stupid thing. And then everything changed once movies learned to talk. So we went from silent films to talkies. Everything changed. Film was no longer a weird novelty. This became the dominant media of the 20th century. As Chris Byrne puts it, he says, film became the literature of the 20th century. So what does that mean for games? Because games can already talk. right? In fact, they talk too much, and you're like, can you turn that down? Those characters won't stop talking, they talk too much. So what needs to change with them? Because they're in a very similar position to go to a silent film. People say games, that's not a serious medium. You can't tell real stories there. Grown-ups don't really take that stuff seriously. That's for kids and for people who aren't right. It's very parallel. So what's going to change? Well, what if the difference is games need to learn to listen? Think how different it is once you actually have characters who can listen to what you say and not just what you do. We'll move from a realm where games are all about stuff below the neck, running and jumping and punching and shooting, to things above the neck, talking and persuading and arguing and just things that involve intelligence and conversation. Once we move into that place, we move into a whole other realm. You're now going to have experiences where characters are actually having emotions about what you do, emotional reactions to what you say and do. Imagine having a conversation with a game character where they're like, they're not going to give you an object because they don't think you're sincere enough about how much you care about how they feel, and you have to persuade them that no, I really do care how you feel. Like, it opens up this whole new world. So AI is going to be really important, and one of the things that we forget about is the importance of children in all of this. Because the thing about new media is you only ever own it if you come into it as a child, right? I started playing video games when I was 5. Like, I own video games. I grew up with them, like everything about them, like I get it, and I know what they are. But like social media showed up later, and for me it's still weird. Like, and it's always going to be weird. I don't like getting used to it. But when you grow up with a thing, it's completely different. So the kids who grow up with this stuff, they're going to be the ones who own it, and where it really makes sense. So how do kids feel about virtual reality? Turns out they like it a lot. They really, 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 really like it a lot. They enjoy it a great deal. It totally makes sense, right? Because it's a tool of the imagination. And kids have so much stronger imaginations than adults do. So, thinking about this, I'll tell you a quick story about a thing that happened to me. I was visiting a friend, and he's like, check out my new kitchen, it's an awesome new kitchen. And I'm like, wow, that's a great new kitchen. And he says, I got this new stainless steel refrigerator, what do you think? I'm like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Do you like it? Is it good? He says, it's mostly good, but you can't stick magnets to it. And I'm like, yeah, that's weird, right? Stainless steel, why can't you stick magnets to stainless steel? It's steel. Like, it's made out of iron. Why can't you stick magnets to it? He's like, I don't know why. And his 10-year-old kid is standing there, who pulls out a phone, beep, boop, boop. It says, stainless steel is infused with nickel, which creates a crystalline structure which inhibits magnetization. And I just looked at him and I'm like, is it weird to you that like you have all the knowledge in the world, like in your pocket all the time? Do you think that's strange? Or is that like just normal to you? And the kid's like, what was it like, he says. What was it like to live in the age of ignorance? And I was like, what? And I'm like, no, he's right, it sucked. It sucked living in the age of ignorance. It was bad. We just used to have to sit and wonder. Because it's different. When you grow up with a thing, it's totally different. And before too long, we're going to have these kids who grow up with VR systems, AR systems, talking to AIs like it's a totally normal thing to do. And what's that going to be like? So, it's easy for me to imagine. I don't think it's like right around the corner or anything, but if you get like by like 2035, because the part of the problem, people forget about kids. Everyone's like, oh, stuff for adults, $1,200 tech devices. That's fine. But if you really want to change the world, you have to find stuff that's going to work for kids. For stuff to work for kids, it's got to be super easy, it's got to be super cheap and super durable. It's going to take a little time. But that time's going to come. So think by 2035, we'll have robust, easy to use, safe for your eyes, augmented reality systems. And by that time, AI is going to be so far along. What are these kids going to want to do with it? I'll tell you what they're going to want to do with it. Imaginary friends. It's not a medium for adults. Augmented reality is super weird. You're walking around the real world, but there's phantasms all around you. It's super weird. Adults don't want to run outside and play kickball with Pikachu. That's embarrassing. Chasing after ghosts. But kids love it. Kids, you play with imaginary stuff all the time. So imagine the kid, you put on these magic glasses, and here's your imaginary friend. And you can talk with this friend, and you can play all sorts of games. This friend is always there for you, always ready to chat with you, play all kinds of games, anything you want to do. They're right there for it. They're up for all kinds of adventures, any kind of crazy stuff you want to do. And you're like, this sounds weird. Isn't this socially isolating? Well, maybe, but like if the other kids have it too, then it's not really weird because kids will meet each other and be like, yeah, the imaginary friends will play with each other. Or maybe even the imaginary friends will introduce the kids to each other, right? And it'll become a normal part of play. But like, will parents really want to do this? Yeah, they will. Because you know what? This isn't just a playmate. This is a playmate who's incredibly patient, will play the right games at the right time, and look for the right moments for the right learning opportunities. Because all of the teaching ability, all of the information in the world is right there. And what parent is going to be able to resist this incredibly patient playmate and tutor that their kid loves and helps make your kids smarter and better and is always there to encourage you? That's hard to resist. So some people look at it and say, oh man, that freaks me out. We need to stop this kind of thing. I'm not sure that's a good idea. But I don't look at it that way. Because I think when we talk about augmentation, we're not really augmenting reality. We're augmenting your imagination. Right? This is a way to give you new eyes. Imagine if we could give children the eyes of these people. Right? How does Albert Einstein see like what's happening with modern telescopes? How does Martin Luther King see tomorrow's election? Right? When you can give these new kinds of eyes, it's an incredibly powerful thing. And because when you see things in a new way, like it just fundamentally changes things for you. And so instead of worrying about this and saying, oh, this technology might be bad, I'm not thinking about that, because what I'm thinking about is our job as technologists isn't to build some whizzy gadget that's going to be popular at CES. Like, our job is to build the eyes of the next generation. This is the task that's before us. This may be the most important thing that we can do for society. And so my opinion is we should combine our efforts and build them the best eyes that the world has ever seen. Thanks very much. All right. We're going to try. Let's do it.
So what do you guys think? Awesome. We had a little real reality on the bus ride over here. So it's so cool to bring the industry here to TCNJ, and we're going to walk over and just get a chance to informally talk to these guys and talk to Jesse, and we're going to do it in half the time that we thought we were going to do it in. But that's okay. So here's who we have, and just real quickly, could you run down and introduce yourself and say what you've been working on?
Hey, so I'm Emmet O'Neill. I'm the Chief Product Officer for Touch Press and Story Toys. We're basically a kids app and game maker, and we do a lot of our own stuff, and we also do licensed content. So I make all of Eric Carl's apps, Very Hungry Caterpillar, that kind of thing, and also do licensed work with the likes of Disney, Marvel, and other big brands.
What country do you think he's from? Well, you know. one of 280 people? He's from Ireland. Mark Schlichting.
I'm Mark Schlichting. I'm the CEO of Littleworks Interactive. And we're specialists in engagement and play. We're really play specialists, which is always a great thing to say. People say, what does that mean? But I can look at your game and tell you why you're missing out on what kids really want to do with it. And that's what we do, is mostly these days we're just consulting with a lot of companies, helping them add magic to their games.
So fixing train wrecks and maybe going in and saying, it's almost magic, here's what you can do and tweak it. And there's a lot of work in that space. And by the way, Emmet is the guy who brought the Very Hungry Caterpillar to the screen successfully. That's Eric Carl's book. And Robin Raskin.
I'm going to divide this into two. The first part of my life, I'm proud to say that I was the editor and the first woman editor of PC Magazine. You probably remember it being a big, thick old magazine that your parents read. Then I went to Yahoo and did some launching of their first computer technology channel. But now I run conferences and events about what it means to be digital at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas and now in China as well.
What country do you think Robin's from?
New York.
New York. And Barbara.
Hello, I'm Barbara Chamberlin. I'm from New Mexico State University. We have a learning games lab where our job is to figure out how we can help people change in the way they want to change. About knowledge, behavior, belief systems, math skills. We usually have about 12 to 15 projects at a time. Either apps, games, animations, video, occasionally print. I've heard it's an effective way to learn.
Barbara, can't wait to show you our program. This is a great picture. It's not unlike her program. It's two worlds coming together, so it's really cool.
I'm Chris Byrne. I've spent my entire adult career just about in the toy industry. I do research. I look at play. Really, a lot of focus on mass market and how that interacts culturally and with education. And I just get to play every day.
Chris is really about 9 to 10 years old. And Mr. Marggraff.
Well, great to see you.
So good to see you.
Thanks. My name is Jim Marggraff. I'm a serial inventor and entrepreneur. I originally created a product to teach geography, an interactive globe. I turned that into a product to teach reading for kids. If you know the Leap Pad, I created the Leap Pad.
You know the Leap Pad? Remember that? That's the guy.
So anybody has one still? Now you'll recognize the voice if you pull it out. And from there, I looked at the medium and came up with an idea to address the problem of when you're taking notes, like many are, you either have to decide do you write or do you listen. And it's a hard choice. So I created this tool, which is a smart pen. It captures ink when you write, it records audio, and that's a sync to your notes. You can touch your notes and hear what was said when you write notes. And I started that company. Most recently, I was interested in eye tracking, so I started iPhones and sold it to Google about 2 years ago. And what we did was we created technology that lets you transform intent into action through your eyes. So imagine being able to see something, anything you might do with your finger on a smartphone, you can do with your eyes, looking at a display, but faster, and do it without looking and without dwelling, just by looking. And so that's what I've done most recently.
And so all these guys are experts in technology, and they've come to learn about child development and motivation and psychology, because that drives how you use technology. So we want to get as many questions and just open up the conversation, and also there's a whole bunch of other people that could be on this panel right down there. So let's open it up. Anybody have any comment, including Jesse, you still have your mic on?
Yeah, David.
All right, so I know you'll chime in when necessary. Let's have a conversation. Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about Dust or Magic?
Sure. On the back of the handout, there's a little saying that Matsubashi, and it's an idea can turn from dust to magic, depending on the talent that rubs against it. And that's never been more true than with digital media. There's case study after case study of a few amazing products that just a couple people put together who understood how to make the magic happen. And those made them very wealthy, or other people lost fortunes. And so oftentimes the dots can be turned into magic. You can call Mark and he can help you. But that's where it came from. And it applies to a lot of things. It's a very general kind of idea, but it fits really well. The original title of this workshop is going to be Child Development 101 for the Designers of Children's Interactive Media. Not very sexy. So we got the best one. Yes?
So after just like hearing this talk about VR and AR, how do you think it applies to the industries that you are in, or like has this given you any ideas, or are you working on things that involve this? Like, how do you see it in application?
So we have actually done some, we've done a bit of AR and a bit of VR. I think for me the challenge with VR is, and this could be maybe your skeptical point number 6, is that no parent wants to see their child looking like this all the time. And while I actually believe that adolescents will be the key audience that make it happen, I think that a thing that fundamentally blocks people's eyes is I think that's actually the biggest barrier to kids using it, no matter how wonderful the technology is. Maybe over time, in fact, I've no doubt over time they'll overcome that. But for me, VR is not something that we're doing a lot of at the moment. AR, on the other hand, we are doing a lot of. We basically produced an augmented reality version of Gary Caterpillar, which hatches an egg in front of you, and the caterpillar comes out, and you got to feed it. It's like a virtual pet. And we found that actually, when kids used it, it was more engaging and more interactive than them doing exactly the same thing if they were just using an iPad. If there was an adult in the room, they'd say, hey, look, they'd come over and they'd engage, they'd play with other kids. And even when the device went down afterwards, they'd jump around the room playing with the imaginary butterflies. So, for me, for very young kids anyway, AR is the better tech to use at the moment.
I think the VR, the piece is getting the parents involved, because Jesse was saying we're old school. And so it seems strange to us, but I can imagine an application of VR place where you and your kids go and do it together, and if you get the parents buy-in, then you're golden. So.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a different answer. I know Jesse talked about AR being the domain of kids, but I actually think it's about the domain of women in particular and the household. So how many of you have been to Sephora lately, where you have the makeup mirror and you don't have to try on the yucky samples anymore? You can, in augmented reality, try on your lipsticks, your eyeshadows. They'll on the back, they're taking data so that it won't be out of stock. They'll know your lipstick will be in stock for you. I assume by next year this time it will just be Robin's lipstick, and I'll know exactly which mixture I want, and it will be ready for me when I walk in the store. So in home furnishings, I just redid a room in AR, where we put the cabinets in, we put the rugs in, we put the curtains in without buying or testing or mailing or shipping anything. Sort of have to look at what that room looked like. For VR, I think the first place it's going to happen are 2 places. For the rest of us, it's going to be public spaces because it's not affordable, and there will be VR experiences in clubs and parlors and restaurants and wine bars. But I think the really big opportunity, and I would not dismiss it, is enterprise. And it's already being used to design cars, to train people on assembly lines, what to do, to train surgeons on how to do a surgery without having to wait for that cadaver to show up. So I think that the enterprise is actually really committed to using VR as a worker training, lifelong learning thing, and I think you'll just find it a great way to learn. So that's my take on that.
It's why almost every department at the college should be here, because it will affect every field. What an opportunity, but we know. Jim, your stuff in the eye is fascinating, and what's your take on this?
Yeah, roll back to some of the comments that Jesse made. When you look at the signal you have available to you, when you're looking at it in a human's eyes, the information is vast and profound, and you think about what that could mean two fronts. One is just observational. For instance, in education, when you put a child in a VR headset, you know if they're reading, whether they're stumbling, because you can look at their eye motion. You know how attentive they are. You can look at all types of movements of the eye.
So you're saying right now the information that your eye, the human eye takes in, and just think about it, right? You're looking around, how many K of information is that? If you digitize all of that times 2. This is how Jim thinks.
Yeah, imagine you have a couple cameras in your headset looking towards your eyes. Imagine Leap has eye tracking in the headset, and Fove had one, so some other companies looks at your eyes and can see how your eyes are moving. We know a lot of information about what your emotional state is. We can invoke certain behaviors, and we can watch your response. So if you're looking, you're consuming information, it's one thing. But if we give you the opportunity to control and direct with your eyes and move seamlessly between these two states, you can do that as well. And when you do, the experience is incredible. So intelligence, my belief is as well, if we could let you interact with IA. So I'd love to combine VR with IA with EI. So an intelligent agent with eye interaction. Combine these three things, and what you could do is have a dialogue where an individual could be working with an agent that's observing their eyes. And by moving the information, making it more accessible more rapidly, I think we could literally improve someone's intelligence while you are in a headset. Because you could have a dialogue and flow of information no one's ever experienced before. And we played with that a bit, and it's quite interesting to see what happens.
Just rewind the tape for 30 seconds and play that again, because that's a pretty powerful idea. So it's really cognitive science and what that means for how this technology can. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Yeah.
Okay, so this is a question for game design. So imagine you're making a game and there's a balanced scale in front of you. On one half of the scale is actual gameplay, the other half is storytelling, writing. Which would you say has more impact on the actual game, the gameplay or storytelling? If you had to take away one from one, which would you think has more impact, gameplay or storytelling?
Yeah, I think storytelling is really the most important, because that's what draws the kid in and the player in. It really is. You look at the games out there that are popular right now. There's a lot of story in them, unless they're just sort of casual puzzle games. But the immersive stories, they really are. That's where it starts, and then you're off on an adventure, and it's got to put the child at the center of that experience, or the player at the center of that experience, as the star of the show, really, because that's what keeps them in. It keeps them going because you've got them engaged emotionally and intellectually.
I think there is actually a big challenge there as well, because as soon as you make a game overly story-driven, then it becomes consumable. So like a movie, you'll run through it once and you won't go back and play again. So it depends on what you're going for, what genre. Some games, story is absolutely the key, but in others, if you want the user to be able to go back in, play up, keep going through, although you'll obviously have, overarching story points. If you make something too literally a story, like say one of the Telltale games or something like that, they're played once, never played again. So it depends on what you're going for.
But it is what makes you care about the story. And remember, there used to be a place called the BattleTech, where you could go in, and you went into these booths and you were battling people on cross countries. And when they first built it, they had, I think, 85% men and 15% women, and they wanted to increase the women's involvement in game playing and make it a social outing where you went out and played. So they increased the story. And when they increased the story, it gave women a reason to go out and save somebody. I mean, they became more, and all of a sudden they became 45% of the audience. So it changed their audience quite a bit by just involving a story that they cared about.
They have a boyfriend.
So I think your question about which is more important, game mechanics or storytelling, is interesting, and it depends on which one sucks less. Because if the gameplay sucks, the storytelling is going to be really important. If the story is crap, the interaction is important. So I would say it's not as easy to split those, which is why it's so hard to be a game designer. Because as a game designer, you have to know all the things, so that at any point, the most important thing is what is the interaction. Like Emmet said, what is the interaction? What is the player feeling? What are they doing? What is their control? What is their sense of agency? It might be story that gets you there. It might be a game mechanic that gets you there. It might be personal history. It might be a social interaction. It might be something personal deep inside them. So as a game designer, you have to know how to manipulate all of those things so that in any given instance, you pull out the tool that's most relevant.
I might challenge your question. Challenge your question as well. You put it on a spectrum, suggesting one end or the other. It was interesting since people responded to leapfrog, we discarded the idea that something had to be educational or fun, because that was the interesting comments. Which are you going to be? We just said that's not the question to ask. And an example of that is, if you remember in the old Leap pad, there were story arcs throughout that in the games continuously. So there were basically, anytime you'd invoke a game, it began with an element of story that created an emotional state, and it's how you feel. So we captured it with music, the way you would feel for a moment, just set the stage, and then there was some type of a goal and a plot, and it was a little mini story. So you can do that, you can merge them. So I challenge you. I think I heard some of that with comments just now.
So I just want to stop for a second because we're kind of only 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes behind schedule. We can go a little bit more. You guys okay? Professor?
Yeah. I'm assuming that most of you work on projects that have a lot of stakeholders, and I'm wondering how you deal with the challenge, it's a problem or a challenge of design by committee, and how do you make the argument to those stakeholders that all of the things they think should be in a product are not necessarily what will make it.
Those stakeholders make a lot of dust.
I think Jesse had a good answer to this a couple of years ago, putting you back on the spot, where you were talking about that it was all the games that really stood out, all had one main designer who was driving the vision of the product, and that, and you listed off 5 or 6 of the main people, and I think that's true. It's great to have the input of a great team, but you got to have somebody who's got the vision and holds it and makes it happen.
Who's in the decision-making mode, and just, what to say this the right way, because like, if you compliment Jesse too much, his ego would get very large. He teaches, he gets it, and he also runs a game studio, so he understands that he's very rare in the field. And I'm speaking as a reviewer, and I met Jesse through the games reviewed. He made Toontown, and I was like, this is an awesome game. He made it, and it came from Jesse. And so that's really important for the people at the top of the decision food chain to be able to influence and have the respect and get and be in tune with the end users, because there's so many products that just get so mudded up throughout the interactive chain.
I would echo that singular vision. It really it makes a huge difference, and a lot of it is just down to context. I mean, you know, if you're working with a bunch of game students in a college and they're stakeholders on your project and everybody has a similar level of experience, then you know that can get scrappy. But when you're in an industry situation, you know, I have to respect the decisions, say, my learning designers make, the decisions my audio team make. You know, everybody's got a core strength that there's obviously my engineering team. I've got to really respect what they say we can and cannot do. But if you drive all those guys in the same direction as stakeholders, and people have different experience that they bring to it, you listen to them, you take on board their expertise, and everybody should be just working towards, I guess, the singular vision and in service of whatever the overarching idea is.
So it makes for a fun company when there's a shared vision that you're all creating something great together. Makes going to work fun.
Consensus yields mediocrity.
Yes.
Flat out.
I disagree.
and I'll bet, I chatted with Jesse before, but the win happens when there is a passionate individual that drives something, that sparks enthusiasm among a group of people, and then is able to listen to those individuals and prune out the brilliance that comes out of those people when they're part of the team. That's when magic happens, in my experience.
Can I share something that we heard earlier today? I wanted to say I wondered first about your question. Whenever anybody comes to me and they're nervous about being a parent, for example, and they're worried, will I be a good father? Will I be a good mother? I don't know. What is my life? And I'm like, you are really worried about it. You're good. Like, if you are worried enough about your ability to be a parent, that's going to drive you through all the problems that makes being parenting difficult. So I would say the fact that you recognize that working with stakeholders is a thing, you're good, man. I mean, like, if you just go in and recognize this is a really important part of development, that's really helpful. But we had heard earlier today from Krista Marks when she was talking about ways to keep your products from sucking, and should know she's very good at making products that don't suck. And one of those things is don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem. And the one thing that all of your stakeholders, the thing that you are most devoted to, that you should, at least in my field, which is about transformation and change, is our loyalty is yes to the client and to the user, but our loyalty is to the problem that has to be solved. It's to the issue that we're dealing with, or really it's to the change we are trying to make in an individual. And if you can keep all of your stakeholders focused on that change, what's going to work? What does we see that work? What's the research tell us? What's the interaction going to make? What's the experience? If you can keep your loyalty not to the people or to the stakeholders or to the ideas in the room, but to the problem that can be solved, you can usually get everybody on board. It's a management issue to make that happen.
Any questions from up there? Well, I know you do. Yeah? Real loud?
So I wanted to start my own business account. I wanted to get into virtual reality. And I want to make experiences. So not really like animation, not really games or something. What is the most important thing that I need to do with my time at TCNJ and my time when I graduate to make that a reality?
Great question. What's your advice to a college student right now?
I think I'd say look at where something like VR is really working right now. Probably the best VR that I've experienced was at Fisher-Price, and it's not something any consumer sees. It's a VR that you put it on and you become the size of the child playing with the toy. And it is transformative for design, because you are really, you're looking at a big Imaginext castle, and as an adult, you look down at it, but you're actually seeing it in that way. And I think looking at where things are working right now, and then moving into that, and then saying, how can I then push that to the next level? What's the next idea beyond that? Trying to find how it works, and then expand.
And taste a lot of things, try a lot of things, because every platform has affordances. I think it'd be wise for us to make this sort of the last question, but give every panelist, including Jesse, a chance to address it.
I just wanted to answer his question.
Basically, what is your advice to a college student? But yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that you really need to follow your passion. What are the things that interest you? What do you want to learn about? So you go ahead and learn about, if you're really into animation, figure out that animation, learn about the people. Because, the way things continue to move, the job that you're going to end up doing maybe hasn't been invented yet. Maybe you're the one who's going to invent it. Yeah. And most of us didn't know we were going to end up doing what we're doing, and we ended up stepping into it from weird-ass angles, and all of a sudden, I was a carpenter, and 2 years later I was speaking at the Smithsonian and Stanford about as a meter in new media, and I was thinking, man, I'm such a poser, I'm just an animator, but actually I just stepped into this new place, and it felt like a glove, and it was what I wanted to do, and I think that can happen for you too.
Little secret, by the way, if you know Just Grandma and Me, the CD-ROM, that's the voice of Grandma.
But I think while you're here, like to put your mark on academia, not have it just put its mark on you, but you put your mark on it. So I think you should tell Warren that we want to rent a bus, because he's very good at that. And then I think that you should map out every VR place. You have a drone school down the road from you that looks killer. And go in there and interview these people about what their challenges are and problems. You're then creating an academic body of work that will live on if you're
We actually do that, Rob. We're working with Trentoniana and with Professor Elf. We're going and helping this, all the content that was pre-refrigerator magnetic kid, to bring it into the digital age, and it's really a very applied kind of thing. And our other class went to Fred Rogers Center in Latrobe and actually got in a van, and we learned how ears work there. And it was, we're trying. Thank you, great advice.
The one thing I would say is use every opportunity you have to work really hard, work like crazy, and try things out. It is the most consequenceless time you have in your life to experiment. So you can basically try things out, work with people, work with different groups, and just produce as much output as you possibly can. You might make mistakes along the way, but you're gaining experience all the time with every mistake. And those mistakes in this nice, comfortable environment, they don't cost in the same way as they would if you actually went out and set up your own business. And they'll leave you in a position where actually by the time you leave, you maybe have enough of a sense of, okay, I've got experience here, here, and here. I can now apply those things together and actually make something that's a real marketable product.
Everything you know applies to everything else.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Read Shakespeare. And by that I mean begin to understand how people function in the world and how the emotional life of people, so that you're going to be dealing with people and you're going to be inspiring people, and read the great literature. I like Shakespeare, but that really helps you understand how the world works, how people work, because you're going to need to address that, and you're going to need to address it with an open heart as much as with the technical knowledge that you'll acquire.
Short one, write your RCR, other acronym. Write your rocking chair retrospective. What that means is put yourself out in the future, somewhere way out in the future when you're 80, 100, 120, and you've got a week or two left, and you're sitting in your rocking chair, you're looking back over your life, and you're rocking away, and ask yourself 3 questions. Looking back at that point in time, in present tense, and sit down and write 1 or 2 pages and answer these questions, and actually do it. And answer the first question is, looking over your life, you're sitting there, well, what did I enjoy most in my life? The second one is how did I most contribute? And the third is, what am I most proud of? And I promise if you do that right now, it's a really hard exercise to do. It was with a group of Columbia Business School students that offered it up. There were 150 people in the room, and they all said they were excited, hands were going up, and I said, hey, if you want, I'll read it if you send it in. And so I was expecting this onslaught of emails. About a week later, I had one email. And the person said it in the morning, and I read it, and I was disappointed. I remember the woman, she was really strong. And what she wrote was just not that good. I was okay. I got in the afternoon another email, and she said, I lied. I didn't write down what I really wanted to write down because I was afraid I might not get there. So it's very hard to do this, but if you actually go through the process of it, you asked about how you get forward in your job, how you move forward in your job in animation, and you start your own business. If you go through the exercise of writing that, take the time to do it as best you can, present tense looking back, speculating what you will have done in your life. It will affect the way you think about what you're doing right now in ways that are pretty profound. Just give it a shot.
Jesse, a final word? And then, Teresa, you can tell us what to do.
Yeah, I think my final word would just be make cool stuff. Just make things and finish them. Anybody can start a project. Finishing a project is that's what's really going to get you there. Look for every opportunity.
Well, I want you guys to know this is one of my rocking chairs to bring you guys with you guys. And thank you so much for coming. And Chris, we'll see you in a couple of days. And let's keep working because it's a good job, it's a good challenge. So thank you.
So on behalf of the Department of Interactive Multimedia, please join